Hello and welcome to the ScatterVolt channel, and today we're going to be building the best $1,200 gaming PC in 2024. This PC is going to be a 1440p monster. If there's any PC game you can think of and you want to play it at 2560 by 1440 at up to 240 frames per second, you can do that on this PC. And yes, of course, you can stream and record games and upload videos to YouTube, Twitch, wherever you want. Because it's 2024, you want to build a PC to get the most bang for your buck. Don't settle for one of those cheap and overpriced pre-builds. So in today's video, I'll show you how to put together this PC step by step, the parts going inside of it, how to install Windows, drivers, and then the 1440p benchmarks for this PC, and if you should actually build this computer. And if you're a first-time builder, don't worry, I got you covered. My website, pcbuilds.gg, found in the description below, has a full layout of each part needed to build this PC from different retailers so you can get the best price possible. And with all that said, here's a word from our sponsor. All right, so the motherboard we're using for this build, if you check the pcbuilds.gg link, is gonna be about $160 brand new. But I thought it was a good idea to pick up this open box deal from Micro Center for $54. I'm not joking. Now that seems suspiciously low for the price of a motherboard, so I don't know if it's gonna work. I hope it does. But the reason why I really like to get these deals is because all of these build guides that you see here on the ScatterVolt channel are self-funded. These come out of my pocket to produce for you guys. So if you just wanna see more of these build guides, all I ask is for a like. That way we can continue making these and helping out more PC gamers into getting into PC gaming by building a PC rather than settling for a pre-built. So any likes are appreciated. But yeah, let's hope this motherboard works. So for the processor, we're using a Ryzen 5 7600X. Now, once again, I bought this from Micro Center, which is why there's this yellow label right here, for about $160 through an open box sale, which is pretty neat. But right now on pcbuilds.gg, I believe you can snag this processor for about $200 brand new, which is only about $10 more expensive than the Ryzen 5 7600. And in that instance, I think the 7600X is a better deal because it is faster, it is clocked higher, it is gonna consume more power, and the only drawback is that you're gonna need an aftermarket cooler, which for this build, once again, you guys have seen this before, but Enermex, I kid you not, they sent me a lot of stuff and they didn't tell me what to do with it. So one of those is another AIO from them, this 360mm AIO from them, and this is gonna do the trick. There's nothing special to it. The cooler that I recommend in my pcbuilds.gg link is also gonna work just as fine in this build. It doesn't matter what brand you go with as long as the reviews for it aren't really terrible, but we need an aftermarket cooler for the 7600X. And I figured if you're gonna get the regular 7600, you probably weren't gonna get the crappy stock cooler with it. You're gonna get something aftermarket anyways. So we're gonna pair that up with our legendary $50 motherboard from Micro Center, that being this B650 Gaming Plus Wi-Fi from MSI. I'm gonna say this again, like with all my build guides, you don't need this exact motherboard in order to make this build work. It can be from Asus, Gigabyte, ASRock, or wherever else. As long as it is ATX and B650, it'll work in this build guide. And preferably comes with Wi-Fi because that seems like something that a lot of you guys want in your builds. So if we open this up, here's our IO shield in a plastic baggie. Okay, open box, sure, I'll take it. Here's some screws. Okay, never mind. This motherboard was definitely used. Check this out. You can see someone has definitely used this motherboard because there'd be this black plastic piece on the motherboard socket here where the CPU goes, but there isn't one. So like I said, this is an open box deal from Micro Center, so there isn't necessarily a link to the manual. But if we look here on the MSI box, right here, there's a QR code for the user manual. You can scan that, and there you can learn where goes where on the motherboard. If you have any questions on where to plug in something from the case or where to plug in the fans into the motherboard, check up the manual. It'll tell you where to plug in what. You just need to know how to read, which in 2024 might actually sometimes be too much of an ask. Okay, first things first, let's go ahead and install the processor into the motherboard socket. Take this out. Locate the triangle on the top left of the CPU and line it up with the triangle on the top left of the socket. It'll be slightly indented, so you'll tell the orientation, but this is really easy. You can't mess this up. Gently drop this in, give it a little jiggle. That way it's all the way in there. And once you think it is, bring this down, pull down the lever, and there you go. Okay, so while you're here and the CPU is exposed, if you are using an air cooler, go ahead and install that outright, full on, right now onto your 7600X. Or if you're gonna be using a water cooler, like what I have today, go ahead and install the mounting for the water pump right here where the 7600X on the motherboard. Now, this is gonna vary by AIO manufacturer, but go ahead and follow the instruction manual provided by your water cooler or air cooler for how to do that. Might as well take care of this now because it's easier to do it outside the case than with it inside of it. Okay. And next up, for a RAM and SSD, get yourself 32 gigabytes of 6000 megahertz cast latency 30 memory, or it can be 6400 megahertz cast latency 32. That also works. Just don't go any farther than that. But whatever I have linked in the PCBuilds.gg link in the description below is going to be the RAM kit you most likely want to end up with because it's going to have the best price to performance. So today I'm using some from G-Skill. This is from a leftover build. Like I said, brand doesn't matter. It can be G-Skill, Team Group, King Bank, King Spec, whatever, as long as it isn't too fast of memory. But what does matter is your choice of SSD, because something a lot of those pre-builds I was talking about earlier in the video skimp out on is the quality of the M.2 SSD, because they usually choose an SSD that is DRAM-less. But in this build guide, we've got an SSD that has a DRAM controller. So for those of you who have no clue what I'm talking about, take my word for it. DRAM controller is like having insurance for your SSD. It preserves the read and write speeds of these super fast M.2 drives over time. And for this build guide, I'm using one that I bought from Micro Center. It's this Inland Performance Plus PCI Gen 4.0. It's got wicked fast read and write speeds. You don't need any more than that, really. And once again, what I have linked in the PCBuilds.gg link in the description below might be different from this, but it'll work just as fine, and also comes with a DRAM controller. So let's go ahead and install the memory first, which is gonna go into slots A2 and B2. And even on the motherboard, it says to install an A2 and B2 first. That's how it's always been for any kit of 2 sticks of RAM. Now note that the inserts on these RAM kits are different sizes, so this is only gonna go in one way. So go ahead and line this up into one of the 2 slots. Once you think it's gonna go in, give it a firm press and hear a click. And there you go. Then for our M.2 SSD, we're gonna put this right here. This is universally where our M.2 SSD is always gonna go. But here's where to go ahead and grab your Phillips head screwdriver. You can get away with a regular Phillips head attachment, but to get access to these smaller screws, you might wanna use a smaller Phillips head 1 attachment. Unscrew the heat sink right here. Fully take it out. Now do not forget to remove this plastic protective piece right here where your M.2 SSD is gonna go. That way it can effectively dissipate heat to our heat spreader. So you can see here on the M.2 SSD, there's a little notch that's gonna line up with the insert here. So this is gonna go in only one way. Click that in. Now to go ahead and take care of this, it looks like we're going to need to bring this back and then rotate this lever to go back on top of the M.2 SSD so it can stay in place. There we go. And then bring this around. That's gonna stay in place. And let's simply go ahead and put this back on and you've got that installed. All right, for the case, we have the Montech Sky 2. This might go down as probably the best case under $100 for a few reasons. 1, it's got great airflow. 2, it looks great. 3, it's $90. 4, it comes with 4 pre-included ARGB fans, and 5, and this is my favorite part about the case. If we open up this back panel, which you'll eventually need to get into, we bring this around, everything is already cable managed for you, and this comes with a pre-included ARGB and fan controller here in the back. And get this, there is the cable that you're eventually gonna need to plug into your motherboard to control the fans. And here's the little 5-volt ARGB header that you're eventually gonna need to also plug into your motherboard to control all of the RGB from the fans. Pretty neat for 90 bucks. Anyways, while you're back here, go ahead and pull up this white box. And in this special white box, if we open this up, there's gonna be some good stuff in here. All of the cables you'd possibly need, all of the screws you'd possibly need to put anything you want in this case will come with any PC case you get. Not this one, but any case. So no, you don't need to buy your screws separately from somewhere else. So first things first, let's go ahead and insert our IO Shield right here where my index finger is, because we want to get this out of the way first before we put it in the motherboard. As you can see, there are going to be two sides to this IO shield. There's a flat side here, and there's a side with pokey bits sticking out. We want the side with pokey bits facing the inside of the PC case and the flat side on the outside. Now, how we orient this is really simple. Just imagine your motherboard's going to go in the case, line it up with how this IO shield should go, bring this in from the inside to the case. And how I like to do this is I like to press in one corner of the IO shield at a time into the PC case. So that way it's firmly in there. There we go, got one end, there's the other. Yep, that is all the way in there. Now, like I said earlier, go ahead and reach into your baggie full of screws, and we're gonna wanna go ahead and use the screws that say MB/SSD. MB stands for motherboard, so that's clearly what we're gonna use to install the motherboard. Here's where an extra case fan is for the Montech Sky 2. That could go right here if we wanted, but we'll install that later. But let's go ahead and check how many standoffs we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 standoffs. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 holes on the motherboard, so we're good for standoffs. So go ahead and drop this in gently. Line this up with the IO shield, press up against it a little bit, so that way the standoffs can line up with the holes. Then take your banana, put in one screw at a time, but don't fully screw in the screw. Put it in like halfway. We want to do this and put in each of these screws in halfway because we don't want to fully tighten down all of the screws until all of them are already in place. That way there's equal pressure on all sides of the motherboard and we don't possibly promote any motherboard flex. Okay, and with all of the screws halfway in, to tighten each of these, we'll go to one corner, tighten this one up all the way. Go to the adjacent corner, tighten this up all the way. Go to the other corner, tighten this up all the way, and basically follow a crisscross formation. That way, like I said, we put equal pressure on all sides of the motherboard. So I've got all the screws in about halfway, and now I'm gonna go ahead and go to one corner, tighten this one up all the way, go to the adjacent corner, and more or less, you wanna do this in a crisscross formation. That way you put equal pressure on all sides of the motherboard. Okay, so now is where you'd probably want to go ahead and install your water cooler if you haven't done that already. If you have an air cooler, you should have knocked that out when you had the motherboard on the table by itself, but it'd be smart to go ahead and take care of this. But what would also be smart is if you go ahead and pre-route your CPU power cable right here, because if you're gonna have a 360mm AIO, like what I'm gonna have in today's build, you're probably gonna go ahead and have these two 8-pin CPU power connections here already taken care of as you put in that AIO. So go ahead and take care of that. Quickly take out your power supply box if you wanna knock that out right now. Otherwise, you can wait until you install the power supply, which you can still take care of with an AIO installed, but you gotta have really small hands to get that. So just my recommendation there. Anyways, to actually install one of these AIOs, follow the manual that came with your AIO. It'll lead you to the promised land of water cooling. You just gotta follow the steps and read. Okay. And for the power supply, I have this overkill unit from Enermax that's 1050 watts. If you couldn't catch the memo, Enermax has sent me a lot of stuff that I need to use eventually. But the recommended power supply for this build can be found in the PCBuilds.gg link in the description below. It's gonna be about 850 to 750 watts, 80 plus gold, and that's really all you need for this $1,200 build. Now installing this is very simple. You just gotta bring around the PC case, open up your power supply box, like so. Here is your power supply unit. And again, if you check the PCBuilds.gg link, you should find one that is fully modular. So all of the ports will need to be plugged in one by one, depending on what you wanna power on in this system, which is not a lot. Open this up and let me show you what cables we'll need. One of them obviously is gonna be the power supply cable that goes in the back of our power supply to your wall outlet. That's pretty essential. Also in here are 4 included screws that we'll need to screw in the back of the power supply into the case. They're also included in the case baggie, just as a reference. But now as far as cables go, just know what you have in your system and that'll tell you what cables you need. So one of the cables you'll obviously need is going to be your PCIe power cable. This is what will eventually go into your graphics card, and we're gonna need 2 of these cables. So right here on your power supply, it'll either say CPU or PCIe, so just plug in one of these into one of these ports, and then let's plug our second cable right next to it so we don't forget. Then of course we need our CPU power cable, and we're gonna need 2 of these because we have 2 8-pin connectors for our CPU. Now, like I said, for the AIO, might have been smart to take care of this before you put it in, but otherwise, if you haven't, let's go ahead and take care of this now. Plug one of these into your power supply where it says CPU or PCIe, and let's get the other. Now, if you recall, this is our RGB and fan controller all-in-one that's already hooked up for us, but to power this on, we need to use a single SATA power cable, which is what you also use, say, for a hard drive or a physical SATA SSD. So let's go ahead and grab one of these cables with one of those SATA power connectors, like what I was just saying. Now let's plug one of these into where it says SATA. And finally, here's our big chunky boy motherboard power connector. The one with the split ends is going to go into the power supply. Make sure these are pressed in all the way. There you go. Now to put this into the case, it's also very simple. We want to have the fan side facing down. Bring this in, butt this up onto the back of the PC case. If you remember, like I was saying earlier, there was a baggie that came with the power supply with 4 screws that we'll need to screw in the power supply into the case. These are these black, thick, chunky screws. Go ahead and line up the holes with the holes on the power supply. There you go. Okay, so before we start plugging in everything into the motherboard, let me go ahead and give you guys the order of operations for how we're gonna tackle this back here. Now, once again, Montech has done a fantastic job in cable managing all of the cables we want from our fans and front IO already here in the case. So let's go ahead and start off with the 2 cables that are coming from our RGB and fan hub. So this we're gonna need to plug into our motherboard. This we're gonna need to plug into our 5-volt ARGB header on our motherboard. They will most likely go down here near the bottom right of the motherboard because I see 2 ports for them. Then here is a single fan cable that is all of the CPU fans here from our water cooler. We're gonna plug this into one of the ports here on the top right of the motherboard where we want to plug in our CPU cooler. And then after that, let's go ahead and take care of our front IO cables. So like our power button and reset button, which is all in one right here, very convenient. USB 3.0, HD audio, so your audio jacks, USB Type-C, that's pretty straightforward. And then finally, our remaining power supply cables. I've already got our 2 CPU power cables pre-routed up here, but I've got the motherboard, PCIe power cables for our graphics card, and our single SATA power cable, which let's go ahead and start off with this first. Let's go ahead and plug in the power for our fan and RGB header right now, and let's take care of the rest. So let's start things off with our fan header that's gonna control all of the fans from our fan controller. We got a neat little fan header port right here. Go ahead and plug this in. It'll only go in one way. And then conveniently close to it is a 3-pin 5-volt ARGB header that matches the 3 holes here for our connector. This will only go in one way. And I should mention, if you are wondering where any of these plugs go, they'll be shown to you on the motherboard manual. They'll tell you where to plug in 5-volt ARGB headers, fan headers, pump, CPU fan headers. Just for reference, the manual. It'll get you covered. So if you look right here, we've already got our pump header cable from our pump here where it says pump fan. And we've already got our 3 fans here from the AIO that are all hooked up into a single cable right here where it says CPU fan. So that's taken care of. Now here's our singular front panel connector. This is very easy to plug in with this case. It's gonna go right here on the bottom right of the motherboard. This is only gonna go in one way. Now just right next to that front panel connector is a USB 3.0 header right here, as indicated on the motherboard manual. There's a little notch here on the connector, so you can see it kind of sticks out. That's gonna line up with the connector here, so this is only gonna go in one way. You can't mess this up. Here is our USB Type-C header. That's gonna go right here. This is also only gonna go in one way, like that. Here's our HD audio connector. It's gonna go down here where it says J-Aud or HD audio, depending on your motherboard brand. As usual, this will only go in one way. Can't mess this up. Boom. Here's that big chunky motherboard power connector. Here's a latch. There's gonna be a little ridge right here on this side of the motherboard power connector, and you're gonna wanna bring those 2 ends together. Once again, this will only go in one way, but make sure you firmly press this in all the way. And then up top here, we have our CPU power cables. Once again, you can see there's a little latch here on the connector, and there's gonna be a ridge At the very tippy top of each of these connectors, you're gonna wanna bring the two together. Make sure you press it in all the way to where you can hear it click. And here's the other one. And for the main event, we've got, for the graphics card, the AMD Radeon RX 7800 XT. This is the best graphics card from AMD so far this generation, other than the one that's tied with it, the Radeon RX 7900 GRE. Now, this is retailing for just below $500 or at $500, but if you had an extra $50 to spend in this build, consider picking up a 7900 GRE, because that extra $50 will be worth it. But that'll make this a $1,250 build. And that'd be an inaccurate title for this video. But still, the 7800 XT is a fantastic 1440p gaming graphics card. There's a reason why there are so many of them that are selling in the aftermarket DIY market. That is because it strikes a really great balance between performance, hardware, features, and probably most importantly, price. Because for about $500, who wouldn't want a graphics card that has 16 gigabytes of VRAM? Who wouldn't want a graphics card that's gonna consistently push out about 144 to 240 frames per second at 1440p? Who wouldn't want a graphics card that can acquire the AV1 codec and use that for streaming or game recording? So to install this, we're going to remove the two PCI brackets that are gonna be occupied by the 7800 XT. There we go. Remove these two brackets. And now remove this PCI cover slot for our 7800 XT. Bring the card in, line it up with this topmost slot that's been reinforced. Never mind, we gotta go one more slot down. There we go. Bring this, line it up. Also line it up with the case. Once you think it's gonna go in, give it a firm press and you should hear a click like that. And now take those same screws that you unscrewed and put them back into the graphics card. And the last few things we're gonna do is obviously go ahead and plug in the power cables to the 7800 XT. I like to separate these two 8-pin power connectors with two separate cables. That way we avoid a power overload on a single cable and we disperse it across two cables, or power spike if you wanna call it that. And let's get the other one. Once again, this will only go in one way. And as usual, make sure to firmly insert these into the graphics card. And later you can tidy this up with some zip ties so you can bunch these cables up a little bit together, make it a bit easier for you, or use some custom sleeved power supply extension cables, which I'll most likely be dealing with. And finally, don't forget to screw in your two antennas for your Wi-Fi connection here for when we eventually install Windows. This was an open box motherboard, so they didn't include them. It's not the end of the world, but I'll have to find something, but let's go ahead and turn on the computer and see if it works. And now let's see if this turns on. So to start things off, first and foremost, the most important thing is, remember this power cable here? You're gonna wanna go ahead and plug in one end into the pack of the power supply, one end into a wall outlet. And here you're gonna wanna go ahead and flick the switch from the 0 to the 1 so it's ready to turn on. Then from there, of course, don't forget to plug in your mouse and keyboard. That seems pretty self-explanatory. But then here's the tricky stuff that a lot of you guys seem to mess up on. Plug in one end of your display cable. It can be DisplayPort, it can be HDMI, it doesn't matter, into the graphics card where my hand is, down here where the graphics card is. And then plug in the other end into your monitor. And then a lot of people actually mess this up. Don't forget to supply power to your monitor. I mean, duh, otherwise why else would it not turn on? And the final thing you'll need is to actually get a bootable Windows media device ready. So this can be on any 8GB or bigger USB flash drive. I have a full dedicated video tutorial linked in the description below showing you how to create one of these Windows bootable media devices for free. So once you go ahead and take care of that, plug this into any USB 3.0 port on the back or front of the PC. It does not matter. Press the power button and we sit and wait. Oh my, the $50 motherboard worked. If you see anything like this, just proceed to run setup. It's gonna do it automatically. The $50 motherboard hack Micro Center open box trick worked. And now let's install Windows. So go ahead and hit install now. Here's where you can go ahead and enter in your Windows product key if you have one. I just quickly went ahead and bought one from our sponsor, mycdks.com. Used my discount code SB30 for 30% off and got a Windows 11 Pro key for just under $20. So I'm gonna go ahead and enter it in letter by letter right now. Okay, we've got that. Hit next. Let's see if that works. It does. I accept. Next. Custom. There's our 1TB SSD. Next. Done. Okay, go ahead and choose your country, choose your keyboard language. If you want a second one because you're bilingual, go for it. Here you just want to go ahead and connect to the internet. Unfortunately, our Wi-Fi drivers for our motherboard have not been pre-installed, so at the moment we have nothing, but there's two ways you can go about this. You can go ahead and grab a spare Wi-Fi card that's USB if you have one of those lying around, or if you want to go ahead and plug in an Ethernet cable directly from the back of the PC to your router, that also works. Or you can actually bypass this entirely if you Google how to do that through the command prompt. That's another option. But for me, I've got this spare USB Wi-Fi card, so I'm gonna go ahead and plug that in. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and connect to my Wi-Fi. Here, you're welcome to go ahead and name your PC. Now let's go ahead and set up the device for personal use. Now is where you wanna go ahead and sign into your preferred Microsoft account. Now you may just have one of these lying around from your Xbox days. It could be a Hotmail account. It can be a Google account. It can be whatever you want. Just this is gonna be the thing that you're gonna universally use anytime you sign into your PC. If you're given an option like this, just hit more options, set up as a new PC, set up as a new PC. Here's where you're gonna go ahead and create your PIN. This is what you'll use to sign into your PC anytime you turn it on. Now for all of these privacy settings, I go ahead and turn them off because I don't want them. They're extra processes running in the background that could slow down my PC. For all of this experience and customize and offer stuff, I just go ahead and decline or skip all of these because they're unnecessary. And once you get through all of this, then we'll go ahead and install those drivers. Okay, and once you see this, you'll see this thing called MSI Driver Utility Installer pop up. Your motherboard may have a similar thing if it's ASRock, Asus, or Gigabyte, but just go ahead and accept. And here's where you can go ahead and pre-install the different utilities and drivers you'd want aside from your graphics card drivers, which it actually does give you the option for, but that might be for the integrated graphics. So for example, we don't need Adobe, we don't need Dropbox, we do want MSI Center to control our RGB, we want our AMD chipset drivers, our Realtek PCIe network drivers, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, HD audio. We don't need Norton, we don't need CPU-Z, we don't need AIDA66, and we don't need wallpaper. So just the essentials. And while that's running, let's go ahead and install the graphics card drivers for our 7800 XT. So type in 7800 XT drivers or AMD drivers, doesn't matter which one. Click on the topmost AMD.com link, go and click on Windows 11. We can click on the latest version. All right, all the utilities for our motherboard have been installed, so we'll go ahead and finish this up. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and run our graphics card driver software. So hit yes. If you get something like this, let that Windows update run. Okay, yeah, we got a lot of stuff. Let's go ahead and download, install all of this, restart our PC, and then we'll try the graphics card installation one more time. Okay, we ran those updates. Let's see if those graphics card drivers will now run. There we go. There's our graphics card driver software install. Let this run, and then we'll restart the PC and enter the BIOS and do one final thing. All right, this is finished installing. You can launch the software, but let's go ahead, enter the BIOS and do those final few changes. So to enter the BIOS, once you see the brand of your motherboard come up, go ahead and press the delete key. Make sure to hit it in time. That way you can enter the BIOS. And there we go. We are in. All we gotta do is go ahead and press 1. That's gonna enable our XMP profile so our RAM is running at its full advertised speed. And just so we can, let's go ahead and make sure that resizable bar is enabled. It is. We are all set up and ready to go. And you can also tweak other things while you're here. Like the fans, you can go ahead and change the fan curves if you want, but otherwise you are ready to get to gaming. So let's go ahead and advanced settings, save and exit, save changes and reboot, and we are done. Okay, before we get started with the benchmarks, I want to quickly show you guys that you can indeed easily overclock both the CPU and the GPU straight from the AMD Adrenalin software. Just go to performance, tuning, and well, bam, you're here. Welcome to overclock the CPU, which if you do, that's gonna restart your system, but you're gonna get the most gains if you decide to overclock your GPU. You can also undervolt it if you wanna use less power, and you can even tune the preset to be quiet if you want your system to be a little bit more quieter under load. I'm gonna go ahead and overclock it because I want all the performance possible. And do note, I did indeed test Fortnite on this PC, and I think I achieved about 250 frames per second on the low preset at DX12. or it might have been performance mode. I'm not sure. The footage is here on screen. The reason why I'm telling you guys now is because the audio for the A-roll never got recorded. And that was a take that I did last week, and I don't want to redo it because I hate playing Fortnite. But just to let you know, the stigma that AMD cards run poorly on Fortnite does not apply to the 7800 XT in this PC. So with all that said, now let's get into a better first-person shooter like CS2. And yeah, I'm being serious here. The better first-person shooter, clearly, is CS2. Now, I will show you guys feeling good are we today. There's the frame rate on the top left. We're getting damn near close to 300 FPS, which is pretty nutty. Let's take a moment to go ahead and show you guys the graphics settings real quick, which is about high-ish settings at about, again, 1440p, not 1080p. This is a 1440p gaming PC. Nova time. Oh, that was not a headshot? What? Woo! Got one. Got another one. Oh, no sir. Got a third one. Nova. Oh. Bro. Yo, these kids, man. Okay. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. I will say, I don't feel hindered at all with this PC. It is destroying this game, absolutely. Oh, let me get that retribution kill. Woo! Yeah, the 300 FPS, who can really complain with that? Ooh, okay. I want to briefly show you guys Starfield because apparently this game is actually making kind of a comeback. The player count is staying really strong actually for this game. So despite my comments, Starfield is actually kind of relevant. And its performance has definitely been getting better since it released. Right now we are running this game at 1440p at ultra. And you know what, let's turn off FSR 3. Let's just see what this PC can do natively without any cheating. With ultra settings, 1440p, we are getting about 70 FPS inside New Alexandria? Is that what this town is called? I may have totally screwed it up. I don't know. But yeah, 70 FPS, ultra settings, 1440p. Game looks good. Okay, now let's go ahead, do what we just did, continue the quest, but I'm gonna turn on FSR 3, see how much frame generation can boost up the frame rate in this game, which I think is appropriate for a single player game like this. Let's turn that on. Before we were getting about 70 FPS, now we're getting 114, 120. Not bad, AMD, not bad. Okay, what is up next? I wanna fly to a planet, and I think that'll cover our Starfield gameplay for the day. Oh yeah, new planet. Let's see. And the performance is about 106. 120. Can we increase the graphics anymore? I'm just genuinely curious. That is completely up. Other than enabling film grain, which we don't need that. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it here. Let's do one more game. And just because I know I'm gonna be asked this, can this PC do ray tracing even though it has an AMD graphics card? Absolutely. Let's go to graphics settings. Here we are. Video, 1440p. Graphics, ray tracing ultra, and we have AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution 2.1, aka FSR, helping us out to achieve that ray tracing. Anyways, as per usual, we're gonna steal this bike, grab these guys' attention. Actually, what if I fought them for once? What if I fought them for once, actually? See, once again, being the purist I am, I have absolutely no clue about the power-ups and crap in this game. I just point and shoot. I'm a really simple guy. All right, there we go, got one. Oh yeah, I'm done, all right. Hey though. It can run ray tracing. I think that's cool enough. Let's close out the video. Okay, where do I begin with this PC? Well, I'll be real with you. Let's talk about what you want to do for upgrades on this PC, which I don't see the need to right now, or even like 2 to 3 years in the future. What's going to happen is that you're going to run into some sort of constraint at 1440p, where you can't achieve, say, a certain frame rate on a new PC game you're playing at 1440p. And if that's the case at a certain graphical setting, then that'd be your cue to upgrade the graphics card. Or say you're playing a game that is putting no stress at all on the graphics card, but you want that ultimate frame rate, and you find that the CPU just isn't that strong enough to get you like 300 or above FPS on like the next esports FPS game, then that'll be your cue to upgrade this CPU. Otherwise, I don't really see the need. this PC is really darn fast, and it's also kind of set up to like not be touched with or messed with, because it'll just do its thing, I assume, for the next 5 years, and you will not have to do a massive upgrade or anything like that, because the more you spend on a custom build like this, the less likely you're gonna need to upgrade this. Maybe unless there's like a, let's say Grand Theft Auto 6 supports full-on ray tracing, then that probably be a good reason to upgrade, say, the graphics card in this PC. But that's about it, man. This thing is really damn fast. It crushed Fortnite. So once again, that stigma that AMD graphics cards run terribly on Fortnite is merely a misnomer created by the internet to sway people to get one brand of graphics card over the other. And of course, it crushed it on CS2, Starfield, and even Cyberpunk with the ray tracing turned on. This is a very capable 1440p PC, and I don't see why you'd want to upgrade it. This is just about everything you'll need. I only see the need to spend more than this. Say if you wanted to build my $1,500 build that also is designed for 1440p. If you want to do ray tracing specifically, if you want the best ray tracing performance possible, build that PC. But if you don't care much about ray tracing, and you don't want to spend $1,500, this is really good. I don't know why you want to spend more than this. So that is it for this video, and give it a like. That always helps out, especially in the YouTube algorithm. And feel free to subscribe to my channel if you like my videos and you've been watching the video up until this point, which means you like what you see. So yeah, you probably want to subscribe. So with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and this is the ScatterVolt channel, signing out.